Alright, this is video number 3, and this time we are looking at the 30, 60, 90 triangle theorem. So this time, instead of having 45, 45, 90 as our angles, we are going to be dealing with triangles that have a 30-degree angle, a 60-degree angle, and a 90-degree angle. So let's look at the relationship between the sides of this triangle. The theorem will explain that to us. In a 30, 60, 90 triangle, the length of the hypotenuse is always going to be 2 times the length of the shorter leg. Let's look at our triangle and see that. The length of the hypotenuse is going to be 2 times the shorter leg. So if shorter leg is S, then the hypotenuse is going to be 2 times S, or 2S. And we'll keep reading for the other relationship. Secondly, the length of the longer leg is the length of the shorter leg times radical 3. So the length of the longer leg, not the hypotenuse, but the longer leg, is the shorter leg times radical 3. So if the shorter leg is S, then the longer leg is S radical 3. All right, let's look in my notebook. Let's do a quick reminder with our little key here. Our shorter leg is L, our longer leg is L times radical 3, and our hypotenuse is 2L, or 2 times the shorter leg. Let's look at the picture just to cement that. In a 30, 60, 90 triangle, our shorter leg is L, our longer leg is L times radical 3, and our hypotenuse is L times 2, or 2L. So now let's use that information to solve some problems. Looking at our first one, let me erase. This is not my first try at this video, which is sometimes the case, so let me erase what I did trying it before. Okay, we'll get a fresh start. All right, so we do have a 30, 60, 90 triangle, so we need to apply our 30, 60, 90 triangle theorem. And that tells us that the hypotenuse is going to be twice the shorter leg. Well, that enables us to see that x is going to be 8 because it's half of the hypotenuse, and the hypotenuse is twice the shorter leg. So if the shorter leg is 8, the hypotenuse is 16. And the longer leg, if you will remember, the longer leg is the shorter leg times radical 3. So here, if our shorter leg is 8, then our longer leg is simply going to be 8 radical 3, or the shorter leg times radical 3. That's all we can do there for the length of that side. We cannot simplify it any further. That is your answer. So solving for x and y in this problem, the shorter leg, or x, is 8. We figured that out because the hypotenuse is twice as long, so this could only be 8. And our longer leg, or y, is 8 radical 3. All right, let's look at the next one. In the next problem, we are given the longer leg. Well, we always need to be trying to figure out the shorter leg because that's what these other two are built on from our understanding. So if we know the longer leg in this problem but not the shorter leg, we need to use an equation to figure out the shorter leg. Well, we know that the longer leg is the shorter leg times radical 3. So let's do that. Our longer leg equals the shorter leg times radical 3, or 11 equals x radical 3. Now we need to solve this for x to find out what the shorter leg is. So x is going to equal 11 divided by radical 3 so that we get x alone on the right side. Now this is going back to the first video and how I taught you to deal with radicals on the bottom. So let's do that. We have 11 radical 3, but we cannot have that radical 3 on the bottom. So we must multiply the top and bottom of this fraction by radical 3, and we're going to have 11 radical 3 over 3, because radical 3 times radical 3 is radical 9, and the square root of 9 is 3. Square root of 9 equals 3. So our final fraction is 11 radical 3 over 3. So x is going to be 11 square root of 3, or radical 3, over 3. Let me make sure I'm on the right. Yes, I'm on the right page with that. Okay, and now, if you will remember, this is the easier part. Our hypotenuse is simply the shorter leg times 2. So all we need to do is multiply this times 2. Well, let's multiply 11 radical 3 over 3 times 2. And of course, that 2 is a 2 over a 1. And we're going to get 11 times 2 is 22. And then radical 3, because we multiplied our like terms, those whole numbers. So 11 times 2 is 22, and then we have our radical 3. and 3 times 1 is 3. So our final answer that cannot be reduced there is y equals 22 radical 3 over 3. Now you can go back and rewatch this section of the video to make sure that you understand, but let's keep practicing. We have 4 more problems to practice this on. Same relationship every time. So this time we're given our hypotenuse as 18 radical 3. Well, we know that our hypotenuse is simply twice as long as our shorter side, so let's just take half of this. What is half of 18 radical 3? It's 9 radical 3. Because we can't take half of the radical 3, what we're really doing is saying 18 radical 3 over 2. And it's these two like terms that we work with, so 18 divided by 2 is 9, and then the radical 3. So our shorter side is 9 radical 3. Now we know that our longer side is, let's go back and look at our key. Our longer side is the shorter side times radical 3, or in this case, the shorter side times radical 3. So let's come down and let's do our shorter side times radical 3. So we have 9 radical 3 times radical 3. Well, what's going to happen when we say radical 3 times radical 3? Radical 3 times radical 3 is going to be radical 9 or just 3 because the square root of 9 is 3. So in this problem, we still have this 9, but we also have it multiplied by 3 because square root of 3 times square root of 3 just equals 3. If you notice, I'm using radical and square root interchangeably as my words. But we have 9 times this, we have 9 square root of 3 times the square root of 3, which is 9 times 3, which you see here, which equals 27. So the longer side of our triangle is 27. So you can go back and watch this one again if you need to understand, but let's move on to another one. Here what we're given, this one should be a little easier because here we're given the shorter side. We know it's the shorter side because it's across from the smallest angle, and that goes back to our triangle inequality theorem. The shortest side is going to be across from the smallest angle. So we have 5, and we know that our hypotenuse across from the longest or the largest angle or the 90-degree angle is going to be 2 times 5, which is 10. Remember, the hypotenuse is 2 times the shortest leg, or the hypotenuse, slide up here, hypotenuse equals 2 times the shortest leg. So we have 5 times 2 is 10 for our hypotenuse, and then for our longest leg, remember it's the shortest leg times radical 3. So we're going to have 5 times radical 3. Simply 5 radical 3. Cannot be simplified, that's our final answer. All right, let's look at another one. I'm going to need to do some rearranging here for a second. All right, the next one, we are not given our shortest leg, but we are given our hypotenuse. Remember, our hypotenuse is 2 times the shortest leg. So if this is 24, then this must be 12. Remember also that our longest leg is our shortest leg times radical 3. So we're simply going to say shortest leg radical 3. That's our answer for our longest leg. Those are the answers for this triangle. X would equal 12, y would equal 12 radical 3. And our last example, we do not have our shortest leg. We have our longer leg, but we also do not have our hypotenuse. Remember, we find the shortest leg by going opposite the smallest angle. Okay, so here we have a 9 for our longest leg. Remember, our longest leg is the shortest leg times radical 3. So in this case, 9, or the longer leg, equals the shorter leg times radical 3. Or we actually have a y in place for our shorter leg. So let's say 9 equals y times radical 3, and let's solve for y. We need to get y alone by dividing both sides by radical 3. So we're going to say 9 divided by radical 3. And with what I taught you in the first video, that means that we say 9 over radical 3 times a radical 3 to get rid of that radical 3 on the bottom and a radical 3 on the top, because whatever we do to the bottom, we must also do to the top. So we have 9 radical 3 over 3, because radical 3 times radical 3 is radical 9, and the square root of 9 is simply equal to a 3. That's how we got that. that. Okay, this can be reduced. As you can tell, we can simplify it. So let's say 9 divided, we can either look at it as we're just reducing this fraction, or we can say 9 divided by 3. If we reduce, this becomes a 1 and this becomes a 3. If we just divided, it was 9 divided by 3. And either way, our answer is 3 radical 3. Sorry, I put that in the wrong place, as y'all can see, because we were solving for our shorter leg. So that's 3 radical 3 as our shorter leg. Now our hypotenuse is simply the shorter leg times 2, or in this case, y times 2. So we're going to say 3 radical 3 times 2. We're going to multiply the like terms. 3 times 2 is 6, and radical 3. So 3 radical 3 doubled, or times 2, is 6 radical 3. All right, we have walked through all of the examples that we have for that. Please rewatch those problems if you need to. I would love for us to be able to go into a little bit more depth. I'm going to do one more video that is just one more quick example, and that will be it for today. I have tried to give you minimal homework in this section because I also want you to do some review homework, and you will see that on your lesson plans. But that's it for this video, and there will be one more short video.